All right, welcome back to Photoshop for Photographers, and today we're going to continue our quest on blending modes. Now, today we're going to take a look at the bottom of the palette, and we're going to take a look at the color blending modes. I've copied this off of the Adobe website, and these are their definitions of what hue, saturation, color, and luminosity. Now you have to look. So I'm going to go over this, but then I'm going to show you some real world examples of this in action. And in the end, I'm going to show you this really cool trick on how to tone using one of these blending modes. This probably should be its own little video because it's such a freaking awesome little trick. The first one on our list is hue. And the definition says it creates a result color with the luminance and saturation of the base color and the hue of the blend color. Basically what it's going to do, it's going to keep the luminance and the saturation the same as the bottom layer. But whatever you put on top, it's going to take that color, but it's not going to change the brightness and the saturation of it. Next thing that we have here. Creates a result color with the luminance and hue of the base color and the saturation of the blend color. Painting with this mode in an area with no saturation, gray, causes no change. This is very similar to hue. It's just affecting the image a little bit different. So in this case, we're going to take the luminance, which is the brightness, and the hue, which is the color, and blend it with the saturation of the above color. So if your above color is super saturated, you're going to get more saturated blend mode. And if it's less saturated, you're going to get less saturation in your blend mode. Color creates a result color with the luminance of the base color and the hue and the saturation of the blend color. This preserves the gray levels in the image and is useful for coloring monochrome and tinting color images. Now, this is one of the more useful blending modes that we have in Photoshop, and this is pretty easy for me to show and for you to understand what's going on. It's basically taking the luminance of the base color, but then it's taking the saturation and the color of the top color and blending those together. Luminosity. Luminosity creates a result color with the hue and saturation of the base color and the luminance of the blend color. This mode creates the inverse effect of the color mode. This is another really popular one. So one of the issues that people run into is a lot of times when you're toning a face or really having to bring detail out of something, it can make the colors even more saturated. So by changing to luminosity, what happens is you're not actually affecting the color in the image, that you're just affecting the brightness of the image. So let's go ahead and take a look at these one at a time. So the first one we got here is hue. And so remember, creates a result color with the luminance and the saturation of the base color and the hue of the blend color. So it's not going to change the luminance and saturation, but the base color is going to change. So let's go over here to this picture of this chicken and see what this means. So we have this picture of this chicken, and let's add a photo filter to this. So we're just going to open this layers palette up a little bit here. We're going to go up to solid color. We're going to raise this little guy up so we get some more saturated. We're going to add us a little bit of warmth to this image. Let me disable that. Didn't mean to select that one right there. So what we've done is we've done this solid fill color here, and now we're going to come down and go over to hue. So what is this hue doing? So it's replacing where there was color in the image with this kind of golden color onto the chickens. But notice where there's some white and gray and black values, it's not really changing the color of that because there isn't any color. So it's only changing the color in the areas where there are colors. So what this allows you to do is sort of like tone an image only in very specific areas. Or we can also use this to sort of warm up those colors or change them a lot. So this is with 0. Let's say it's a little bit too cool. We want just to add a little bit of warmth to that chicken. So notice we've just added this little bit of warmth to this image just by kind of shifting or changing those colors by using this hue blending mode. Saturation creates a result color with the luminance and hue of the base color and the saturation of the blend color. Let's take a look at this chicken photo. So this time I'm going to give it a curves adjustment and I'm going to brighten this up. This curves adjustment is brightening this whole image up, but I don't really want to change the brightness of it. What I want to do is actually make the colors a little bit more saturated. So by changing this to saturation, what's happening is the lightness or brightness isn't really changing and the color isn't changing. But because I've brightened this image, it's actually making the saturation increase. So if I can turn this on and off, you can see everything that has color is actually getting more saturated. And that's in connection with how bright I make this. Or I can make everything darker. By making it go darker, it's going to become less saturated. If I make it brighter, it's going to become more saturated. So it's a different way to sort of control color within your image by using a blending mode. Color creates a result color with the luminance of the base color and the hue and saturation of the blend color. This is a really easy one to do, and this is one that I actually use all the time. All right, so the color blending mode is an easy way to explain it, and I think this is something that you're going to probably use a lot of the time. I actually love the color blending mode. So what we're going to do here is we've got our background image, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a gradient this time. So we're going to come over here to gradient, and we can just pick a gradient. Doesn't matter which gradient. I think we'll use a blue. Go ahead and choose a blue, and not really sure which one I want to use. We'll try that one. All right, so that looks pretty good. So now we've created this gradient overlay on this image, and it's doing really funky things, and it's not looking that good. However, if we change it to color, it takes the color out of the bottom image, but it's keeping the luminance and the saturation, and it's overlaying this new color. So this is a great way to split tone, sepia tone, or colorize any image. So I can colorize this this blue, which looks really horrible here. I can also lower that opacity, so we're just doing a little bit of this. And I can always go back in here and change this. So I can come in here, and what's cool now is we can just randomly click on anything and it's automatically going to change these different colors. So what we're going to do here is go down here to pastels, and these are going to be a little less obtrusive. And so we're going to pick this pastel color, and now we're colorizing this image with that pastel color. I'm going to bring back a little bit of the color, but now you can see we've really made this a little bit more monochromatic, but a really nice look by using the blending code of color. So normally this is just a solid color, but we're just applying the color to the image, nothing else. So we're going to go to luminosity, and luminosity creates a result color with the hue and the saturation of the base color and the luminance of the blend color. Basically what that means, it's not changing the color or the saturation, just the brightness. This is another one of those ones that is so helpful. So a lot of times what happens, and we're just going to make this image a little bit dark. I'm going to flatten this. So one of the image things that you have is sometimes when you take photos, they're a little bit dark. And when you want to brighten them, they definitely get brighter. But one of the problems is as you brighten an image, it also saturates the color. So as I brighten this, it's making it brighter, but it's also oversaturating the color at the same time. Let's take a look at this adjustment. So we've gone from here to here. So as I make that adjustment, it's making the color more saturated as well as everything brighter. If I come over here and I change this to luminosity, what it's doing, it's making the image brighter, but it's not actually making the colors brighter. So we can come back up here and take a look at this. So this is with the lips and everything getting brighter. And then if I go to luminosity, you can see definitely there's a color difference where we've made it everything brighter. It's not changing the color in the image. It's just adding brightness. And so this is great. So if you make an adjustment and something is already pretty vibrant, especially like reds, if you make that adjustment and things get even more saturated, they're going to start to become neon. So what you can do is use a blending mode of luminosity only. That way it's only affecting the lightness of the image. All right, and as promised, we're going to do this cool little trick here. And what we are going to do is make a black and white adjustment layer. Woohoo! That looks really good, right? All right, so I've made a black and white adjustment layer and I've turned everything black and white. But what we are going to do now is come down here to luminosity. So we've made a black and white adjustment layer and I've changed this to luminosity. Remember, luminosity only changes the brightness of a color. However, we've turned it black and white. No, we haven't, because there's still color. Now watch this. This is the coolest little trick. So look at the sky. So I'm going to go in here to the sky. I'm going to go into the properties of the black and white adjustment layer. I can actually control the brightness and the darkness of just the blues by using a luminosity blending layer on a black and white adjustment. I know it makes no sense, but it works wonderfully. Same thing with magentas. We can control the brightness of just the magentas by adjusting them there. Reds. Anything that has red. Now remember, some colors have multiple colors. It's just not red. It has red in the color. So we are able to control the brightness and darkness of the reds by adjusting the properties in a black and white adjustment layer with a luminosity blending mode. I know it's a little bit complicated to see, but it's a really cool effect. So once again, let's do this over again. I know it's a little bit complicated for some people to understand. So what exactly I did was I made a black and white adjustment and it made my image black and white. But if I change this to luminosity, luminosity doesn't affect color. It only affects brightness of the image. So then if I take my properties panel for the black and white adjustment layer and I make it brighter in the green, it's going to make anything that has green in it brighter. If I make it darker, it's going to make anything that has darker reds brighter, darker blues, brighter, darker. So that's a cool little trick that you can use inside of Photoshop. Hopefully this has been helpful. If you have any comments or questions, you can leave those below. And as always, don't forget to subscribe.